conferring with his doctor. And this was sent to me yesterday by a friend. I just wanted to share this. It just doesn't need a lot of explanation. And then firefighter deaths also remained at 13 for 2020. So likewise, good news. On the Officer Down Memorial page, the quote that they often promote on their website is, when a police officer is killed, it's not an agency that loses an officer, it's an entire country, our nation. So I leave you with that, and we'll have a report on the 18th, our next board meeting. One side note, state of Tennessee, most of you are probably aware, is in an absolute state of emergency. They've had 25 deaths. They have a minimum of 24 still missing. It is just hundreds of buildings completely destroyed. And if there's anything that Curry County can do, certainly, probably, maybe not certainly, but at least likely some of our finished lumber will be going there from South Coast Lumber to start the rebuilding and the healing. So if we could give our fallen heroes and the folks in Tennessee a moment of silence, it would be much appreciated. Thank you all for that. Did we all read the agenda?
Yeah.
So how are we doing there?
I have no amendments.
The only thing I had was in the minutes, February 19th. It said, let me go to that real quick here. Did we do a roll call? JJ, did we do roll? Motion carried, but it said no action was to be taken. No action taken. Didn't we decide, at least from a consensus, Commissioner Gold, that we were going to have, this is on the two pieces of property, we're going to have the staff review that and see if that's something we wanted to pursue? I thought we did take action. Staff Jesuit, what do you remember about that?
I'm sorry, wasn't
On the two pieces of property in the Brookings area for the county looking at possibly purchasing or leasing those, I think the board did take action. We were going to direct staff to review that. That is correct. So we would need to, is that your recollection?
Well, we had directed staff earlier to look at space needs and space options.
Okay.
So when you did the presentation on it, I think it was just to lay out our options.
So it
was my understanding.
It wasn't actually an action item. So this is correct that no action was taken, but we are going to pursue, as time permits and allows the staff to work on this a little bit further. Great. That's all I needed on that. Yep. Thank you. And the only other thing I had, public hearing on the absentee property, so we can bring that up later. So I have no other changes to the agenda, Madam Gold.
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
And I'll second that.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice.
Yes?
Chair Pash. Absent. Motion carried 2-0.
Thank you, Staff Jesuit. And we didn't receive any public comment slips.
Not to my knowledge.
I haven't seen any.
That's pretty unusual.
I did have, Mr. Barnes did send me some comments, but they were for the property registration ordinance, so I'll just hold them until that time.
That's great. I did have a couple questions on that. So, no presentations. Looking for a motion to approve then the consent agenda, item number 6.
Okay, I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second that with, I think I'll just recap. That's only 3 items on the consent agenda. A would be minutes of the February 19, 2020 business meeting. Item 6B, appoint Asa Bissell of Curry County Parks to the Curry County Parks and Recreation Board. Very much appreciate, of course, his willingness to serve. And approve the employee credit cards. So I'll second that motion, if I didn't already.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice.
Aye.
Chair Pash. Absent. Motion carried 2-0.
Thank you, JJ. So we'll go to item 8A.
So I'll start with that one. It's the resolution for the court-appointed special advocates petition. And before we start, I just want to say that Commissioner Pash was really trying to make it to the meeting. He was in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and he got delayed with all the flights. So that's why he's not here today. But so with the resolution, as you know, Douglas County was basically running both the Curry and Douglas County CASA programs, and they shut down our office in Brookings. So the board discussed had one conversation and then a workshop, and discussed briefly what can we do to help the CASA program remain viable here in Curry County. And they directed me to do a little research on it and to start the process moving on how we could do that. So I did reach out to, I met with the Douglas County CASA reps. I met with Mona Chandler from our CASA and spoke with some people at the state. And it's not quite, it's not a quick process for us to take the CASA program back. So there's a form that has to be filled out. We have to petition the national organization. It does take quite a while for them to get through that process. But to show our intent, what I've done is I've prepared a resolution basically for you, which shows that it is our intent to support the program at all costs, basically, to make sure remains a viable program for our people here in Curry County. So what you have is the resolution just basically declaring our intent, and this will be used, if the board supports it, it'll be used to supplement our petition to continue to try and have our standalone CASA program here for Curry County. At the last meeting, there was a little discussion about, can we go with another county, or how, should we be working with Coos County? Should we be working with Del Norte County? I did find that at one point the legislature was looking at supposedly having the larger CASAs absorb the smaller CASAs to reduce the number of them. For us, of course, that didn't work too well. We have Josephine that works with Jackson, which the larger one that was left was Douglas then. And due to the distance involved, it does appear that it's not really working to our benefit. I think that just the geographic layout of the two counties doesn't make for an easy way to manage the program in Curry from Douglas. Then we talked a little bit about Coos County. I did not reach out to Coos County, but I did talk to a few people, and at the current time, I don't really think that's a good option for our county, just due to perhaps new management in the Coos County program, and some past that we've had with the Coos County program. I think we really are better off looking at a standalone program. It is going to be difficult because they are trying to have the larger CASAs absorb the smaller ones. But I think if it's important, we have to put up the fight and see if we can get it approved.
Commissioner Gold?
Would it be impossible to work with Del Norte County
So
because of state lines and so forth?
I think we could, but I think it'd be very challenging because of the differences in the court systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't. At first, I thought, they're close by, they have a very strong program, but then, and they're under the national umbrella as well, so that does make sense. The challenge comes with, I think, the fact that you have different state laws, and oftentimes these children's, what applies in Del Norte does not apply in Curry County.
Okay, just curious.
Good work. In our resolution, and I'm certainly willing to sign this today, item number 6, though, basically says, because of I'll read it, due to Curry County's remote geographic location, it is not feasible to partner with another CASA, and therefore, the county should revise their organizational chart and resume CASA services as a county government program. And I essentially agree with that, except that I don't want to lock us into what we can't look at. And I have done a little bit of work with Coos County to see if down the road, I think we need to get strong before we can really promote even considering looking to another county. But I just don't want to rule that out. And we have and I think you might have mentioned this, sometime in the last week or so, the relationship we have with Oregon Coast Community Action, they have come a long way in helping them, also, as you know, in the last few years. So that's the only thing I want to add to that is it's a sign of the times when you combine with other counties, and we have another one that you've helped with on the Josephine County Public Health Authority. So it is something that we can use the geographic isolation somewhat to our advantage, but it also to give us, an autonomy, but also to our advantage to join with other counties and municipalities down the road. So I think we're all on the same page here. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Would that resolution lock us in forever, not working with Coos County?
No,
I wouldn't think so.
It's a resolution, so,
Okay.
it's a statement, it's not binding, but you do bring up a good point on number 6, because saying that it's going to be part of the government program. I did speak with Mona Chandler, who runs the Curry County CASA, and at some point, I think it would make sense to contract for those services rather than have it as part of the government organization. But in order for us to contract with them, they would have to become a 501c3, and that's going to take them a while to do that. So, I mean, I think we need to go into this saying, for immediate purposes, they're probably going to have to be part of the government structure, knowing full well that in time they're probably going to branch off and have their own 501c3, and we'll just contract for those services. But we do need to, I think, recognize that, for the immediate future, the best way to do that, I think, would be to just add them to the government program. I did talk with the juvenile department about it. CASA used to be with the juvenile department, and they're willing to house it again until they get the legs that they need to stand on their own at this point.
Will they be able to
Mr.
start
Gold?
immediately?
No.
Okay,
They-
so do we have to wait for the national?
We have to wait for the national approval.
Okay.
And that was my next question. I've been working with Deborah Gilmore, the director at the state level of CASA, so I don't anticipate any difficulties there whatsoever, but I don't know what the process is. I'm sure you do to get the state approval, or excuse me, federal approval.
So the first step is an application, which Ms. Chandler is actually working on. I sent it to her yesterday,
How
actually.
many pages is that?
Not too many. I can't remember. It was about 3, maybe. Maybe Mona has something to add.
Not 30, right?
Hi, I'm Mona Chandler. The application.
Welcome, by the way.
The application is, I think it was like 2 or 3 pages long, but the questions that it asks of me, they're going to take some in-depth explaining kind of the positioning of the questions. It's about asking about a new program. We're not really a new program, so I'm having to explain the timeline and the history in that. I'm also obtaining some support letters from our judges, because it does ask for that on there. And there's a few other things about is the budget, standalone budget, or it wants to know these certain things. So I'm getting some help with some of that, reaching out to some of my other directors that have mentored me over the years, and so they're willing to help me with some of that and questioning that. And could I may also just speak upon the whole thing with Coos
Certainly.
and with ORCA? The history with ORCA is a long history. It was established with ORCA originally back in 1989, and was with CASA of Curry County was under that until 2007. During that time, there was a lot of change of hands in ORCA, the board. I work with Greg quite a bit, and we mentor each other and help each other, and I have a great working relationship with Greg. But there are some things that I don't necessarily agree with how ORCA runs the CASA program. One is that they do their fundraising, and from what I understood a year ago, Greg was financially strapped. He had no money.
Or CASA.
Yes.
Coos County.
Yes.
Excuse me for interrupting. Thank you.
Yes. And so he doesn't do any fundraising. He made it very clear to me that he doesn't really want to do the fundraising, and leaving that to Orca. I don't really, I mean, from what I was hearing from him, there wasn't a lot of fundraising going on at that time a year ago. So for me, that doesn't really give me the sense of stability that I feel that the CASA program needs to have. The other thing is that I've been talking with funders, especially Kathy Byron from Gordon Elwood. She is explaining to me, because I have been under different backbones for several years, it is time for us to get our own 501c3 because funders want to see that. Whether I'm under another 501c3 that is providing the internal supports of a board and it's providing my writing my paycheck or whatever that might look like, which could be through Wild Rivers Foundation. Is one of the options. So those are the kind of goals that we're looking at and talking with the funders right now, and that's what they really want to see for CASA of Curry County. So some independency, but still structured backbone with some sports. So,
Commissioner Gold?
I know you're pretty well based on fundraising, and so is that going to be out the window this year? Or are you going to be able to go ahead with it?
Well, here's the funny thing.
That's-
I asked my husband for a loan so I could throw the fundraiser. He's like, I don't know, I'm going to go buy a boat. So,
Well, what's more important, the
Yes,
kids or
I
the
know.
boat?
I'll loan him my boat.
yeah, okay. So, anyways, I have had advocates say to me, it's really important that we have that fundraiser so we have that financial stability right away. But I don't know if I can really do that without getting some approval, I would assume, from National CASA. Like, for me to move forward with that, don't really see that happening until we get an okay from National CASA.
Yeah, that would cause problems possibly.
Yeah.
This is very informative, so I'm going to spend just a little more time, Mrs. Chandler. And you just mentioned the national approval there. As far as Coos County goes, we're not pushing that. I just want to leave that door open, and
I get it.
we might be stable enough in the future that we can actually help them. Part of the intrigue for me to take on this responsibility and give you the support you need and deserve, and all your advocates, is that looking into the future, the vision would be to really, and the public listening now needs to know how much we need them involved in the fundraising.
Yes.
Whatever that takes.
Yeah.
We can, and also another very good point you made, it's sometimes to get a nonprofit established, it takes $2,000 or $3,000 in attorney fees, and to do that, if you have an attorney do that, and sometimes that's the easiest from what my understanding is. But I think we need to keep the pressure there and go with your recommendation. Yes, that needs to be a high priority.
Yeah.
To help you there. So, yeah, just those 2 or 3 things I wanted to highlight. Del Norte County, I wouldn't rule that out either.
Right.
But the information that Director Smelzer offered helped a lot. But most of our activities in South County, so that might at some point make more sense. And maybe we'll be able to help them too.
Yes.
So I'm not looking to push that or promote that right now, either county. But as I said earlier, it's a sign of the times on how we survive in small rural areas, and I know you're up on that. So
I fully agree with you on that. It's just I'm very protective of the program, and I just want to make the right choices for the program.
Sure.
So.
Commissioner Gold, did you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Director
Thank you.
Smelzer?
Thank
No,
you.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Let's see, item 8B, SEIU, Service Employees.
So do we need a motion to approve the resolution?
Sorry.
Okay, I move that we approve the CASA resolution.
Could you also second that? No, I'll second
This,
that. Thank you. I wanted to make that motion too, darn. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Commissioner Gold,
aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes.
Chair Pash, absent. Motion carried 2-0.
Thank you, JJ. Item 8B,
Yes.
SEIU Service Employees International Union Contract Amendment Letter of Agreement Order. Council Huddle.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair Boice.
You're welcome.
And really, I don't have a lot to add to this. The materials will show the draft. What we're waiting on is duplicate original wedding signatures, but what you have here is an order approving it with the terms that were discussed and agreed upon. And so even though these look like wedding signatures in the packet because there's color, apparently they're not. So once we get the wedding signatures, what the board will be doing is voting to approve this, and then once we get the wedding signatures, it's just a matter of signing things. But the last word was that the board was waiting for the union to sign. You can see the union has signed it, just waiting for wedding, and then once we get that, the board can sign. All the terms are as discussed. So just looking for a motion to approve this.
Staff Jesuit, did you have something?
Accounts payable clerk, senior clerk gave me a sheet with the wedding signatures.
Very good.
I move that we approve the SEIU contract amendment letter of agreement.
I'm going to second that.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash, absent. Motion carried 2-0.
We'll just take just a second here. I want to recognize some people in the office, excuse me, in the in the hearing room here. Jack Antunes is the director of the Wally's House. We have John Herzog, candidate for commissioner next go around. Some wonderful CASA volunteers. Matt Hall from the Port Orford and Curry County newspaper. And congratulations to Mr. Spansell for the governor. I think the governor made a very good decision. So thanks for being here today. So item 8C, Public Health Officer Memorandum of Understanding with Josephine County. Director Smelzer.
We've discussed this a little bit before, but what this is through the public health program, we have to have a public health officer. So that is basically a doctor that can give us advice, review some findings, etc. And we did have Dr. Silver, who was the public health officer for Curry Community Health, agree to stay on until the 15th. But Josephine County has also agreed to help us out, so they're borrowing us their public health officer until we can get a permanent public health officer in place or reach an agreement with Josephine and Jackson County to have a 3-party agreement to share a public health officer. So until that day comes, like I said, Josephine County is willing to let us use their public health officer, and it is at no charge to us. So this memorandum of understanding would solidify that offer, and the board, Josephine County Board's already discussed it and they are supportive of it. So we're asking you to sign that.
Mr. Gold.
I have only one question here. I noticed for liability and damage or injury, we are responsible, which makes sense. Have we discussed this memorandum with our insurance company?
I have not, no.
Do you think there's going to be a problem there, possibly?
I guess that's more of a question for counsel. I think it's pretty standard language on everything, but he's better equipped to answer that.
Just a question. So this is with Josephine County? Mm-hmm. You came from Josephine County.
Yes.
Is CIS the insurer for Josephine County? Were they self-insured? They're either self-insured or they have insurance through CIS. If they have insurance through CIS, I'm only going on past practice. We've had intergovernmental agreements with other Oregon counties, and when the insurance company is the same insurance company for both entities, they have no problems with it. So
Jackson is self-insured. I don't believe Josephine is.
I don't think so either. So
Small.
yeah, I think there's a good chance that the insurance company will not have a problem with it, and if they do, we can bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Say that again, please, between Jackson and Josephine County.
I believe Jackson is self-insured. Josephine is not.
I think there's only 3 counties that aren't with CIS. I could be wrong on that, but it's not very many.
No, I'm nearly positive Josephine County is insured with CIS. Trying to go through my mind as far as our, Wally Hicks is their counsel. He's a member of our Associated Oregon County Councils, and to be part of that, you're supposed to be a member of CIS. Again, I think they're with AOC, so
They are with AOC.
yeah, and once you're a member of AOC, you have CIS. So I think we're A-OK on the insurance company's opinion on the IGA.
Good question. Yeah.
Good work, all. I'm just a bit puzzled, though. One sentence in the paragraph here, and maybe you just covered it and I missed it, is that Josephine County has agreed to help Curry County in their interim until a more permanent agreement can be reached, which would include Jackson County.
Right, so we are exploring agreement between Jackson, Josephine, and Curry to all share a public health officer. So it'd be a three-party agreement. We haven't reached that, we haven't worked out the details of that yet. But when that agreement is finalized, or I'm sorry, when the draft is finalized, we'll bring that back to the board to decide whether we want to be a part of that or whether we want to pay for a public health officer on our own. So what this does is until we can discuss that and reach an agreement on that or not, they're willing to let us use their doctor.
Boy, if you can succeed in that, that would be...
They didn't say
Way to
free
go,
for how
Liz.
long.
Well, this is at no cost to us until that agreement is reached. We do have a handshake deal where we're agreeing not to abuse the services. The doctor, he also is with All Care, and he just really believes in helping out. So we're just grateful for the assistance we get by having these intergovernmental relationships that we do.
That's good news. Even if we don't prevail all the way, we will at some point.
Well, I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding with Josephine County for the public health officer.
I'm going to second that motion. Any further discussion?
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash is absent. Motion carried 2-0.
Item 8D, Facilities Maintenance Assistance / Building Safety and Planning Assistant, Director Smelzer.
Okay, so what this is a request of the board to basically approve us moving forward with some job descriptions if needed, but basically advertising jobs if the descriptions are already in place to fill some gaps that we have in our chart. So first one is with the facilities maintenance department. As you know, we had a full-time facilities maintenance director. We had an assistant facilities maintenance director. We have then a maintenance worker, and then we have a part-time maintenance worker. And with the leaving, we no longer have the facilities maintenance director, and eventually we'll want to, I assume, move the interim director into that position. But what that does is it currently leaves one position open, and this request is to fill that with a part-time position right now. We're currently using someone in another department to kind of meet some of the needs that we have, and we can't continue to do that. So this would say, yes, go ahead and advertise for a part-time facilities maintenance worker. The other one is in that department then to have a part-time administrative staff person in there. So what we're finding is a lot of the time is being spent on the administrative work, and the interim director isn't able to get as much done on the facilities as he would like. So it is actually finding someone to do the claims, track the leases, track the contracts, and things of that nature. We don't feel there's a need for a full-time person at all in that department, but a part-time person would be able to help. One of the things that I found since I've been here is when it comes to the leases used to be managed by facilities maintenance. Then they were shifted around to different departments, and we really don't have a good grasp on our leases and our contracts. Good example is we recently had a contract that I don't think anyone realized was auto-renewing, and we kind of got stuck with a bad contract on something. So just looking at ways to clean up and get a better handle on what's going on with the facilities maintenance and our facilities.
Now, did we have one of these people before, or did Eric do it all, or?
Eric did his claims himself. I think everybody, I think a couple different departments helped him out on some things. So, I think council might have helped him with maybe an RFP, and I've seen different areas where he's had some assistance. But as far as the leases and the contracts go, I think that was just kind of dropped. I don't think anybody was really watching those too closely.
So would this individual take charge of all the leases in the county rather than just
Yes.
maintenance? Okay.
Yes. And then the third request is for the Building Safety Department. So what we have down there is the planning director is on family leave, and she has been telling us all along that, I'm not going to be here forever. If you can find somebody or groom somebody for my position, please do. She's willing to stay on and help us out. She does a fantastic job. But she is on family medical leave, and so we're looking to fill that gap, but also to start doing that succession planning to getting somebody up that can help out in that department full time. On the building safety side of that department, we have an employee who is ill and has missed quite a bit of work, and we've been filling that position with another position which really needs to go back to his job. So it leaves a gap in there. This position in the building safety side kind of operates like a permit tech. It's kind of the person who's managing and logging all of the permits, answering to the contractors, etc. So with the person being ill, a lot of those calls aren't getting done timely. And like I said, one of the inspectors has been helping out, but he really needs to go back in the field and do his inspections. So it's filling that gap. I don't know what else to do other than to get part-time help in there to start, especially with the construction season coming. We have to do something.
Director Smelser, if you would, identify a little bit more, and you did fine here in the cover on the agenda routing slip. Just the amount of activity we have, the increase, and then I'll tell you why I'm going here, but just to let the public know, with what is going on in planning and building, and we're trying to catch up. I mean, there's some incredibly positive things happening down there, but I think I heard you say we're looking like double the activity.
Yes,
Close.
I didn't bring the numbers for today's discussion, but one of our previous meetings we had talked about that. The housing starts are almost double. The activity is way up. We have had the amnesty program. It put a little dent in there, but not much. It's really the fact that the economy's improved. I like to think people have regained some faith in us, but you don't know that. I mean, we have a good inspector. He's on solid ground. We have a great planning director. She's able to process things, and we're not having people go through 2-3 times before they get something correct. I mean, they're really making a difference down there, and I like to think that it's that people are seeing that and they're putting faith in the community. I have faith in the department.
No, all the departments. It's the entire community development rebuild that started just about the time you got here, and you just mentioned the building inspector. He came from the Josephine County program. We saved a lot of money there. We're able to show we could work with Josephine County thanks to your contacts there, and certainly they're commissioners that we know well. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the 7 departments are facilities, maintenance, economic development, planning, building, parks, code enforcement. I'm probably forgetting one, but there's just a real mule team program down there. It's not to say there aren't some small issues. We're missing due to illness one tremendous asset down there on a full-time deal. So, and again, here's where I'm going in the progression of how that's evolving into really catching up from some bad years. When I first got here, we had about 118 county full-time employees. That's essentially everybody, including commissioners, elected officials. And I think the public generally wants us to stay as close as we can. Or that was, by the way, 118, or the equivalent of, if you had part-time employees. Yeah, the LTEs, or FTEs, excuse me. So I think we need to try our best to stay right around that general area. under 120 justify very, in a real strategic way, if we go above that number, and you can verify if that's accurate, but I'm fairly confident it's pretty close. But then also, in the first paragraph here for the facilities maintenance, salary is covered with the remainder of the former director's salary. That gave me a little relief to read that, to review that and understand it. And not that I was surprised, I thought that's where the funding was coming from, but it still gives us 3 people, and we've been operating with 2 in the facilities program for quite a while. So I'm totally ready to support this. I just want to make sure the public knows that we are really into the details on this, and it's from a business standpoint and perspective, we're able to justify this clearly by the activity that's going on in our community development and those 7 departments. And they're all working together too and covering. So anyway, I probably said more than I needed to say there, but
Well, I will say this, I think people see hires come through and they think we're hiring all these people, but there are some new people down there. However, they also replace some other people. So these people are doing a lot of work. The workload's increased, and they've also replaced people that were perhaps at a higher salary. When I first started, I know in the building safety department, we were contracting out services, and we were contracting them out at about twice the rate we're paying these employees. So,
including the plumbing.
And again, the employees have PERS and all this other stuff, but so on the surface it looks like you're adding a bunch of employees, but when you look at the contracts that we did not renew and some of those positions, it really balances out. I mean, it's not like they have a glut of employees down there. They're scrambling to get stuff done down there.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think it's important to note that you mentioned in your report that most of this will be paid by the increased number of planning permits.
Definitely.
Okay.
Commissioner Gold, if you agree, I'd like to just, if we have the consensus, to ask Director Smills, and you could probably go straight to, and would go to HR Swift, just to see if we're right around that 120 full-time or the equivalent of. And if I think we'd be good information to know, and or certainly I can, just from my own curiosity, and be able to tell the citizens, yeah, we're managing this quite well. Are you in somewhat agreement with that?
I don't have a problem with that. I kind of had the same question myself, so.
Well, and we do have some positions that haven't been filled yet. For example, the assessor still has 1 position he has to fill. I think the DA's office might have 2. Clerk's office still has 1 they haven't filled. So, I always look at how many positions are we budgeted for is really what we need to look at. So the number of employees doesn't really match because, like I said, we do have some vacancies that haven't been filled yet. But we can certainly get that for you.
Welcome, Mr. Fortman, and thank you on that. And yes, if we did get a chance to fill those 4 or 5 positions you just mentioned, and we just need to be able to explain to the public why it's important, and I think that's an easy sell. So going on to item 8.
Do you want a motion?
Do we need motion on that?
Yes, you do. Yeah.
I move that we approve the hiring of a facilities maintenance assistant and building safety and planning assistant.
And just to clarify, this would be to proceed with advertising for those positions, and then
Exactly.
we will come back with higher orders as needed.
Okay.
I'll second that. Any other discussion?
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes.
Chair Pash is absent. Motion carried 2-0.
This is a tough one coming up. Item 8E, change of employment classification, Joshua Spansell. District Attorney, you go by Joshua?
I prefer Josh.
Okay, I
It's
thought
a little
maybe.
less formal.
You might want to move that mic down just a little bit. You're right. Great, thank you.
All
Welcome
right.
again.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to formally introduce myself. As Commissioner Boice mentioned, I was appointed by the governor last week to be DA, taking over for Mr. Dial, who retired at the end of January. I look forward to the opportunity. I think I'm up for the challenge, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future. So the action item today is basically given Mr. Kelly, who's the deputy district attorney in our office, we only have one deputy district attorney at this time, like Ms. Schmelzer was talking about. We do have a couple openings. It's been hard for us to recruit attorneys down in Curry County. We're not the only ones that are having problems recruiting prosecutors. But having said that, Mr. Kelly, we're very lucky to have him. He has 12 years of experience as a prosecutor. He comes to us from Washington County District Attorney's Office, which is in the Portland metro area. It's a big office, much bigger than this one, and I think this is a promotion that he's getting here. I think it's well-deserved. He's been with us for, I think, since last summer, approximately 8 months, but he's shown that he's a great attorney. He's more than up to the job, and like I said, we're lucky to have him. I think the upshot of this is he's going into what my job was before I got appointed, and that is the domestic violence and sexual assault prosecutor. Obviously, he has other workload on top of that, but he would take all of those cases. That's what I was doing for the last 2.5 years. But this actually saves the county money because this is a grant-funded position. So he would no longer be being paid by the county. So I guess that's it. I think, like I said, Mr. Kelly is very experienced and up for the job, and I hope you guys will approve it.
Commissioner Gold?
I'm looking at the agenda here, and it says change the employment classification. Don't we mean of Mr. Kelly and not you?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying
My
that.
classification has changed, and I'm now paid by the state.
Okay, that's always good.
Well, over the last couple of years, we're become kind of the top cop, and that's, sometimes that's not a fun job, but we are very glad to have you in Curry County and get to know you and Mr. Kelly both better. If there's any way we can help, I know you will certainly let us know. Part of our job, too, is to help with recruitment and do the things in our county that show stability and security and reasons to move here. And we want to take that on fiercely and compete. It's just like with sheriff's deputies, law enforcement, healthcare providers, schools. It's we're spread a little thin sometimes, but that's a good part of our job, and we intend to be pretty vigorous on that and keep building. And that comes back to community development. So congratulations again.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'm going to make a motion on this to change the employment classification for Kevin Kelly, and he'll now fulfill the role as Deputy District Attorney 3.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion?
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes.
Chair Pash, absent. Motion carried, 2-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, discussion action item 8F, approved contract for 2020-21 audit services. Director Schmelzer?
Yes, so as you know, we have to have someone audit our books every year, and we are up for renewal, looking at hiring a new auditor. We did a request for proposals. It was advertised for about 2 months. We had 2 firms apply for that. So I sent the 2 proposals out for scoring to commissioners and to staff, and the one that is recommended for approval is Moss Adams. The cost is about $20,000 higher than the competitor. However, it's scored higher and appears to fit more of our needs. Moss Adams, just as a side note, used to be our auditor at one time, I think prior to Polly Rogers. So this would be looking for approval so that we can proceed with the contract and then, of course, get that in our budget for the coming year.
Mr. Gold?
I move that we approve the contract for Moss Adams for 2020-21 audit services.
I'm going to second this with discussion. Can you see I'm going to go to item 8A, the insurance, or just item 8, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So they're providing all of this as we're additional insured on, is that?
So what Commissioner Boice is looking at is the
Insurance
contract, the insurance language in our contract. So that, yes, that is the standard language that we have in all of our contracts. We do have the ability to waive it. It was not waived in this case. I did not propose it be waived.
So the public knows they'll do workers' comp, general liability, automobile liability, statutory, $2 million aggregate, and $1 million per occurrence. So good work on that as well. So we have a motion. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Well, I've already made that motion and you seconded it, but I have one other piece of discussion. In talking with Director Schmelzer about this issue, the $20,000 difference, the other company that applied has had a big turnover in people, and it's just like, you've got to have some consistency. So that's why I'm approving this contract. Sometimes it's not just about the money. Yes, did I say that? It's not just about the money.
Did you read all 43 pages of this contract?
Of course. Actually, I was
didn't.
looking for the bottom line, to be honest with you.
Okay. So we're ready for a vote, Staff Jesuit.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash, absent. Motion carried 2-0.
So we ready for director's report?
And I have none this week.
Are you kidding me?
Just trying to catch up.
So commissioner updates, we're gonna load Commissioner Pash up on the 18th, which would be our next meeting. Okay, yeah, I have a few things. Sometimes I skip and then I go, I should have covered that. So let's do this. I want to give a shout out to Coos Curry Electric. 2 meetings back I don't embarrass myself here if I have it incorrect, but I think we have it right. We pay $250,000 a year for electricity. That might include, it does not include the contract on RIT.
It does not include the IT contract, yeah.
Yeah, we need to do a little research on that. I'm going to be asking them for a discount at some point for the county, but it has to do with a lot veterans in Brookings, the Curry County separate billing, the courthouse, the annex. I mean, it's facilities maintenance. It is quite a list. So it's been somewhat eye-opening. I was a little bit surprised, but the shout out I wanted to give Coos Curry Electric, they've been working. They're not supporting yet, nor am I, but on the offshore wind, we've had a couple of meetings where 2 of their top people, certainly Mr. Bischoff, Mr. Knudsen, have been involved, and I think they're getting a little bit enthused on how this possibly could work. We keep hearing the term marine renewable. We had the best winds on the entire western United States, essentially from Bandon to Thomas Creek Bridge between Gold Beach and Brookings. And so we're still very much in the early stages, but it certainly warrants the amount of time that I'm putting in to see how far this can go for Curry County. And these huge towers would be 20 to 25 miles off the Oregon coast. So more on that later, but Coos Curry is really starting to contribute. I think equally noteworthy is the work that they're doing on broadband to try and bring better and improved communication systems into Curry County. And the last meeting I was at with them, boy, I was taking notes like crazy. It's a long-term off, but they're incredibly visionary, and it would be very, very good for our county. And they're trying to take a lead of the small rural co-ops throughout Oregon, and I think they are. I want to give a shout out to Connie Hunter. She's been working really hard, needless to say, on vet issues, but I want to read something here. Curry County landed a big one. Local, together with veterans, efforts will be provided a budget for 3 years, $40,000 times 2 years, plus in-kind program support. Third year will be $20,000. So yeah, it's a $100,000 grant that's coming into Curry County. And I'm going to try and get her to come and give a little more specifics on precisely what that money is for. But it's to help veterans, especially in rural areas. So she's just worked very hard on that, and wanted to offer that to the public. My microphone fall off? No. Yeah, it's got a slippery tie here. Working with other rural Oregon legislators, you keep hearing information, promotion about state of Jefferson, possibly rural Oregon going in with the state of Idaho. And, those ideas might have merit, but I think they're really quite impractical. What I think the answer is for rural Oregon, and I'm going to be doing some work on this, and it's a real long shot, but every county in Oregon needs a senator. Right now we have 30. They're on 4-year terms. And that would solve the problem where the rural areas of Oregon feel like they are not being represented. And there's plenty of a number of issues that would give credibility to that concern. That's why you had the big timber rallies, the farmers, the ranchers, all of it in throughout Oregon. And the Republicans, the rural representatives are not able to make much in the way of headway in Oregon. When I was there a couple of years in 2010 and 11, it was a split between the Senate and the House, and it was a very well-balanced deal. Now it's a supermajority, and that's where the tax issues come. There's a new corporate tax here. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but the state of Oregon has passed, and it's going to hurt our businesses here. I don't want to go into detail, probably should, but it is definitely something that hurts our employers. So I'll give a report down the road on the going from 30 to 36 senators in every county, having that Senate representative. Next, breweries. Summer Madison, our economic development coordinator, has helped me some with the growing industry of breweries in Curry County, and it's just a real bright spot. So we have 4 now. I might be missing one. If I am, I'm going to ask them to come and maybe do a little presentation, part of our visitor promotion, just the uniqueness of Curry County, all added. But it's the Chetco, Arch Rock, Misty Mountain, and Gold Beach just opened up. So also down the road, I want the public to know, and especially in North County, been working with Jackson County on a wolf dog resolution. Unfortunately, 3 years ago, a family that comes here, used to come here to the Flores Lake area every year, a wolf dog got out and bit this little guy. Could have been far worse than it was, but the family was so discouraged they moved. They never had any lawsuits or anything. But the same family that had this dog put it down, as absolutely should have happened, but they've got another one now. And some neighbors are quite concerned. The family says, no, this dog is so well behaved, it can't jump over the fence and all that. And so I'm going to be bringing the board a resolution from Jackson County that I think we could duplicate and might be responsible to do so. And essentially it does a DNA test to determine how much of a pet is actually part of the wolf species. And then they have a $130 permit. Right now Jackson only has 1 permit after they did that resolution, but it's just to let the public know that we are aware that there are risks with having an animal that big and understanding what their nature is. We have the dues for AOCC, Oregon Association of ONC Counties. You might recall last June we had Amanda Astor from Association of Forest Resource Council and Nick Smith representing Healthy Forests and Healthy Communities. They were here and each give about 20, 25-minute presentations. I have a quick right here, read up. This is a news release of, do I dare go right there? No? Oh, here we go. This is a timber sale that has taken place just east, it's through the Coos Bay BLM district. It had, I think, 6 different companies bidding on it. You know, we won the lawsuits. AOCC prevailed in federal court, Washington, D.C. To go back to the, if you look right here, the Management Act of 1937, which, by the way, in those days, that was for 500 million board feet every year. And it is a dominant use. It's not a multiple use. And in our 18 counties, and this needs to be repeated because Curry County is on a shared receipt. We get about 4% of the amount, and we have very little BLM lands, but this was set up clear back in the late 30s. And so of this 529, we'll get 4% of 50% of that. Of course, Douglas County will get about 20%. They're the biggest timber producing county. The point is this lawsuit, we've been doing about 200 million every year in those 18 counties, and that's 300 million under what the law requires. It grows by 1.2 billion board feet every year, so it's growing out of, just out of control because it hasn't been managed well. So with our $21,000 in dues that we owe for AOCC, that's just one area. They are incredibly helpful. And so what we want to be looking at is something about 20 times this size for that 500 million sustained yield every single year. And just some notes I have here. The message that the AOCC has is incredibly positive. A well-managed forest benefits everyone. Is to, of course, certainly to maximize the county resources, revenues, certainly to maximize the access, especially on U.S. Forest Service land, but BLM too, and increase the county's involvement in all management decisions. And another thing, and this is what's happening in the whole discussion on carbon reduction, is that our grasslands and our healthy forests sequester more carbon than Oregon ever lets out. That's why rural Oregon has been so fierce on trying to push back on this 15, 20 cents a gallon additional tax to fight carbon reduction. Of course, fires let out, not natural fires necessarily, but the catastrophic fires release way more carbon than Oregon would ever produce. And so we're making a lot of progress too in stopping the mega fires, the catastrophic fires. So the next thing I have here, wind it down a little bit, back to the COVID-19 virus. I think this title, this will be on our website, but I think this title helps a lot just with the nervousness that understandably some people have. In just the last 4 or 5 days, you know, we've had the 6 deaths all in Washington, but it is spreading around the country. There's now over 60 countries, and some of the stats here, you know, China's lost 3,000 people now. The point is this: if we just follow what the Center for Disease Control are doing, the Oregon Health Authority, I think we'll be in really good shape. That doesn't mean that things won't change, but I'm very proud of what our county is doing and has been truly has been on the leading edge of this from the very beginning. We're working with other counties. We're learning everything we can. We're cautioning people, you know, wash your hands twice. You can't get this virus through your skin. It has to come through your nose, eyes, or lips. And so this is just a wise warning, but I think it's very responsible, and it's worth the time for people to inform themselves. And this will change. It may not change any next week. It might change 2 days consecutively. My final thing here, I just want to make sure the board knows, and back to AOCC, that I'm highly recommending that we pay our dues and stay very integrally involved in the work that they're doing, because it'll vary every year. They're also working, of course, on the whole payment in lieu of taxes issue, the SRS, Secure Rural Schools. They're helping for the Forest Service. And by the way, I had dinner with Merv George again Monday night, and we're just looking at the risk we have. He told me, and I did not know this, I was telling JJ or somebody earlier, maybe it was Eric, that February is the lowest rainfall we've had in some like 25, 26 years. So he is very concerned, but he's already moving equipment around. He is on guard. Curry County, I'll be the first call he gets when the lightning comes, and we're just hoping that we can have several more years of normal fire burns and not the nuclear fires. So I'm just very thankful with the effort that he's putting out. His staff, his 5 district ranges, or 5 ranger districts, and all the people he's working with, and getting to know his boss better, Casamasa, and then Casamasa's boss, Jim Hubbard, in D.C., who's second only to Sonny Perdue, who is the director of the USDA. And so they're aware of the risk we have in Southwest Oregon, all of Oregon, but especially here. We're getting the kind of attention that I'm very happy to say is we're ready, as ready as we can possibly be. And of course, that goes to the Oregon Department of Forestry, too. I could talk for a long time. Promoting Curry County. I've been working on this, different boards. I'll conclude with this. In June of last year, we had the AOC County's board meeting here. In September, we had the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife board meeting in Gold Beach, and I think that went very well. I did a little introduction there. September, I was really privileged to be involved in that, and pretty humbling. But September, also 19, the Oregon Parks Commission was in Brookings. Then we had the AOC District 4 or 5 County Board meeting, which is Coos, Curry, Douglas, Jackson, Josephine County. Confirmed for 2020, we're going to have the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association meeting in Port Orford. We're going to take them on the river, and then that's on the Thursday, and then the Friday we'll have a tour of the Port of Port Orford. I think I mentioned that 2 weeks ago. And hopeful boards, Oregon Transportation Commission. We're going to do that in Brookings so we can get them over Hooskanogden. So they'll have a good view there. The Oregon State Marine Board probably will be here in July. I hope to confirm that within a month. And the Oregon Water Enhancement Board, I'm working very hard to get them to tour Curry County. They were here in 18, so we think they're due to come back either this year, probably likely in 2021. That's all I have for today.
Commissioner, because we have a public hearing, maybe is it possible that we can continue Commissioner comments after the public hearing?
So we're just waiting for Commissioner Gold? Okay. Well, certainly.
Or do you want?
Why don't I just do it, less than a minute? Let me just say one thing. People can go to our website and get up-to-date information on the coronavirus right from OHA rather than YouTube or other places. So if you want up-to-date factual information, just go to our website. It's right there. You can read it for yourself. One thing I've been working on quite a bit in the last couple of weeks is getting ready for our honoring the volunteers here in Curry County. So far, I've got 21 groups who are going to be here to tell us about their programs. So that's it for now.
Great work.
Is that less than a minute?
A minute.
I hope I didn't bore you again. So are we going to public hearing now?
Yes, we'll have to recess into the public hearing.
So the public hearing is officially open.
What's the public hearing on?
Well, I don't have it.
Do you mind if I just proceed, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay. So the public hearing is, and I'll just read it by the title, the second reading of the absent property registration ordinance. It is in the matter of an amendment to the Curry County Code regarding property registration, Article 2, Division 17, property registration. And I'll just proceed with a little summary. So this is our, as you know, we've been working on this since I think it was November. We had our first, well, we had a first reading on it a few months ago, and then we went to a workshop, so we had a new first reading 2 weeks ago. And at that time, we took public comment, and we had offered to the public if they had additional suggestions or revisions to get them to me by last Wednesday. I did hear back from 2 people and communicated with them, incorporated some of their suggestions, which were actually good suggestions, and they are in the red line version that you have before you. You also have a cleaned up version accepting those revisions if you're okay with them. And I'm not sure if the public has anything to say during the hearing right now, but I do have some comments from citizen member Dave Barnes that I can read into the record, if you're okay with that. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Certainly.
So this is from Dave Barnes. Many thanks for your consideration of my recent comments on the ordinance and the inclusion of his comments in the final version. He learned long ago that when faced with the inevitable, try to make the outcome as palatable as the circumstances allow. He says that he thinks we've achieved that. Absent owners will pay someone in Curry, and he hopes maybe the property manager exemption will cause a bump in jobs. He is still concerned about the unspecified fee structure and the mechanics of enforcement, but those are questions maybe better answered during the final implementation process. He asks, since you're going live end of fiscal, maybe make setting the annual fee part of the budget hearings, was his suggestions. He concludes by saying he appreciates the changes and is reluctant and am in reluctant agreement, no longer in total opposition, and that he'd be okay with that. Yes, so that's from David Barnes. And that was the only communication I received other than the two people that had commented that we were going back and forth on comments with, and that was Dave Barnes and Karen Kennedy.
Do you have anything, Commissioner Gould?
My only concern was how are we going to enforce things, and I did talk to Julie about this, and I felt a little bit better after talking to her. I don't know whether you want to elaborate on that.
Sure, I can. So when it comes to the enforcement, it's basically a matter of creating the database down in the Code Enforcement Division and doing a mail merge, getting the letters out to all the property owners. You know, we do have a 3 strikes you're out type policy, so we send the first letter hoping we get compliance. After that, we follow up with a postcard, and after that is when we would start assessing the fine for not paying the fee. With that first year, we hope that they provide an email address so we can do an email blast to remind them every year as well. So that is to be done through the Code Enforcement Office with the administrative staff that they have downstairs. As far as the fee goes, if you remember, originally the fee was in the ordinance, and then after public comments, some people had requested the fee be removed from the ordinance and be discussed separately. So if the board is in agreement with the ordinance, we will come back with a fee schedule for further discussion.
Mr. Gould?
I think it's important, when I first saw this whole thing, I thought, oh, their property taxes are going to rise by whatever. That's not the situation. Each of these homeowners or property owners are going to have to pay that fee separately. So I think that's important to know. So I'm okay with this now.
Thank you. I have a couple things. If you go to page 8, Article 2, the top paragraph, this ordinance shall be known as a property registration ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to protect neighborhoods from blight, vandalism, and other crimes by ensuring an adequate code and law enforcement presence to patrol areas with vacant properties or those developed properties where the owner does not reside on site. Code Enforcement Officer Director Fortin was here last week, and I just want to highlight the property registration ordinance. This is going to improve. He said it a lot better than I can say, but I really understood what he was encouraging us to consider there, and that's just not to be looking over people's shoulders, but to help them understand what the risk is here and what the goal is. And that paragraph is just incredibly well written, and I hope to be able to, refer to it on occasion and refer the public to it. But I want to go also to page 6, just one concern that I have, and that is section 2.17.070, item 2 under maintenance and security. Director Smelser, you crossed off the following: weeds and dead vegetation. Premises shall be kept free of weeds, dead vegetation, graffiti, trash, accumulated newspapers, and other, et cetera, et cetera. Good. The only thing, and it is so hard to tell people you've got to clean your property, but when you look at the, Boice is going to bring it back to the fire fuel, the fire load we have here, the fire risk, and when you tell people you've got to worry about your neighbors, it's like the tour we went on 2 or 3 years ago up fairly close to where Commissioner Gold lives. You go down one road, and it is immaculate. Sure, it's expensive, and I don't mean to diminish the overall cost. But then you go down the next road, and you can hardly see 20 feet because of the brush. That's their right as property owners. But the risk to their neighbors is so great because of the fire fuel to say we're going to cross that off. I don't have a better answer for you, but it gives me great concern. We need to tell the public you've got to take care of your property, especially in Curry County. We have the history to demonstrate over and over again the risk it is to people's homes and lives. And so back to Merv George, nobody in this world is better at protecting the public and determined to do that. And so, I don't know, maybe we'll have him get up on a soapbox and say, at some point here. But I just needed to offer that and highlight it, and I think we need to keep respectfully but consistently beating that drum. Commissioner Gold?
I think that issue is addressed in the next sentence that says property shall be maintained in a manner that does not pose a safety hazard to public, including trespassers.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you there, if I may, only in the sense that this has the weeds and dead vegetation and what they call the 1-hour fuels, which are about the size of your thumb. They burn so hot and it just explodes everything. So that doesn't have anything to do with trespassers. Maybe we can't put it back in, but that was I think it would be my preference.
Well, you could put it back in. I will add, though, that there has been discussion about a weed ordinance as a separate standalone ordinance. I don't know if that would pass. I guess when it comes to the weeds, I think that would apply universally, whether somebody is there or not. We would want, this would only apply to people, of course, that don't live here. The weed ordinance, I think maintaining vegetation would probably be something we'd want to see countywide, to apply to all properties. So that may be something to look at in the future. For now, I think maybe just see if the public has anything to add to it before we get too much further.
So, Commissioner Gold, can we add that back in on the weeds and dead vegetation? Would you be in favor of that, possibly?
I'm kind of agreeing with Director Schmelzer that just because someone's not here and they have weeds growing, that doesn't preclude someone else who lives here all the time to have weeds all over their place. And I got to say, sometimes I'm guilty of weeds.
Well, if I may...
I do mow them, though.
My interpretation of weeds are not necessarily little grass weeds, and I'm not saying you're suggesting that. We have an invasive species problem in all of Oregon, but Curry County is certainly not immune, and there are so many invasive species that are highly volatile, and that adds to a higher fire risk than we had 20, 30, 50 years ago. So these invasive species, pampas grass, is highly flammable. Himalaya blackberries, I'll forego the long list, but it is an issue for the county. I'm not just talking dandelions here. I'm talking serious weeds that can catch homes on fire. So that's why I would prefer to have it in there, but without Commissioner Pasher to here, and if you would rather take it out, then I just challenge you and the board that the more I think about this, the more I think we might even be irresponsible if we don't at least subtly address this. So can I change your mind?
Well, the only reason I'm kind of steadfast on this is because I think it needs to apply to all properties, not just the properties that are where the owners are not here. Because we've got a problem here with people who live here who have these issues.
So, go ahead.
So there was a weed ordinance presented a while ago. We can revisit that, or if the board wants, we can look into a fuels reduction ordinance of something of that nature. And, it'll be a while before we could bring that back, but it's definitely something that we could look at and bring back to the board for discussion.
So I'm not sure how Commissioner Pash would vote, but I think you're on the right track there, and in categorizing it as fire fuel slash invasive species slash weeds, I think that would give the public a good description, and it's going to make our code enforcement jobs easier when they see the surprises they get and go, oh, holy cow. And then we have a propane tank, whatever the circumstances might be. It could light up the whole county. So I think you're on the right track, and if you want to proceed that way, I'm on my own on item section 2 here. So, and I agree with Commissioner Gold. No, it's not just absentee owners, it's the whole county. So maybe this is actually a better path to get where I'm trying to get us. Thank you.
So we'd want to see if there's any comment from the public at this point.
Yeah, okay. Anyone from the public that would like to comment, offer testimony? And, you know, I'm sorry I missed that. That was item 7, and I kept looking after or before Commissioner comments, so I did miss that. I'll improve if I ever get another chance. So I won't use the gavel, but we're going to close the public hearing here on the second reading, absentee property owner registration. And I'm just going to refer that one more time to that property registration ordinance. So that's our next responsibility, right?
Right, so if
Okay.
I can just explain something before the board does vote on this, just so you understand the effective date. So ordinances, if you're inclined to approve this right now, ordinances do become effective in 90 days. This one was written such that the actual implementation of it won't be effective until July 1st, which starts with the new fiscal year. That was a suggestion by council. It was an excellent suggestion rather than have it midterm of a quarter. So just so you understand that the 90 days actually falls before the fiscal year, but the actual implementation date would not start until July 1.
Good job, Council Huddle.
Just trying to help.
Did
Commissioner
you
Gold?
start sending letters out previous to that, just to make sure that we start having?
What we would do is we would work on creating the database
list?
and doing the mail
Okay.
merger and have everything ready to go by July.
Okay, that sounds good.
What department is that?
That would be, it would be administered through our code enforcement division.
Okay.
So are we ready for a motion?
Commissioner Gold, yes, thank you.
Okay, I move that we approve the second reading of the absent property registration ordinance.
It's been a marathon, but great work. I support this fully, and I'm going to second the motion. Any other discussion? Whoop.
Just a clarification then, that is actually adopting the ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
That's what the second reading means, isn't it?
We approved it going to second reading, so now we're actually approving the ordinance, correct?
Oh, okay, good enough.
Just want to make it clear in case anyone has a concern over
Okay, gotcha.
semantics.
I saw your one letter from Karen Kennedy. That's okay. I think we're really good there. I don't need to. She just had a couple of really good points, and I really wanted to highlight. I thought your responses were good, but I think we're okay. You put a lot of time into that, and you answered it all. I read it twice, and that's anyway.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Aye.
Chair Pash, absent. Motion carried 2-0. Sorry.
Okay, we're gonna. Anything else before we adjourn the meeting here? The general meeting.
Nope.
Council Huddle.
No, I'm just hoping we get a brief recess between the meeting and the exec session.
Would you like to come back? It's 10:21. Let's come back at 10:35
For the exec session?
for the executive session.
Sure.
So I need to give those numbers now.
Yep.
That would be executive session. We'll start at 10:35, 192.660, to consider information of records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and then also same law to consult with counsel concerning legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Jesuit.
Not meandering
Thank you, Eric. Well, we're just coming out of executive session. We just have the staff proceed as directed. No decisions were made. We're going back into general session. And we have agenda item 13, higher orders, environmental health coordinator. Director Smelser.
As the agenda runs, the talks about, this was a position we had previously approved, but the wage was in dispute. So we finally got the wage data from CCH last week. Thank you, Eric. So this is a position that we had previously filled. However, the wage was in dispute. We didn't have the data from CCH to make an accurate determination on the wage, so we had guessed with the previous one. With this one here, we did finally get the wage data last week, and by statute, we have to match the wage. So this person will be brought in at step E, which is about a 5-year equivalent, usually how it runs in our system. And the rate would be $28.80 an hour for $4,993 a month. And by statute, we do have to keep them at that wage for 1 year, and then we can reevaluate the wage and possibly drop it if it's beyond our means or we don't feel it's fair.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the higher order for the environmental health coordinator.
I'll second with discussion. Do you have anything, Commissioner Gold?
Just that I think we have our hands tied and we just have to go with it at this point.
What does that work out to a year? Is that 45 a year?
Oh boy, it's about $58,000 a year, I think.
I didn't do very good math there.
Without bennies.
$59,000 without the benefits, yeah.
Any further discussion?
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes.
Chair Pash, absent. Motion carried 2-0.
Anything else to go before the board? I'm anxious to grab this gavel and adjourn this meeting. Good work all today. Thank you.